I stood in the middle of what used to be my grandfather's barn, the air still warm with the kind of heat that whispers the fire hasn't been dead for long. Charred beams poked out from the ashes like broken bones, and the smell burned oak diesel, and 70 years of history clung to my throat. But the thing that froze my blood wasn't the fire. It was the security cam footage I'd replayed 3 times already. That white Mercedes with the vanity plate. HOA Ren 1. Creeping past my property exactly 3 minutes before the flames lit up the night sky. Brenda Kilpatrick had finally done it, and she had no idea she'd just declared war on the one man in this county she absolutely shouldn't have crossed. My name is Thaddeus Brennan. Some people call me Thad. Some used to call me Your Honor. But after 27 years as a federal judge, I'd retired to what I thought would be the quietest place on earth, my family's 47 acres in Milford County, Iowa. I'd come back after losing my wife to cancer, hoping the open fields and the soft rumble of my old John Deere would patch the holes grief had carved into me. The barn was my anchor. My grandfather built it in 1952, hand-cut Iowa oak joints tight enough you couldn't slide a dime between them. It smelled like dried cornpipe tobacco, and every memory I had of this place as a boy. I thought out here far from the noise of courtrooms and corrupt city officials, I'd finally breathe. What I didn't know was that just a quarter-mile down the road sat Millfield Estates 847, nearly identical McMansions run by an HOA president who treated the subdivision like her personal dictatorship. Brenda Kilpatrick. Imagine a 5'6" suburban emperor in designer heels and a bleached smile sharp enough to cut drywall. Her clipboard looked like it held nuclear codes. Her husband owned the biggest construction company in the county. Between the two of them, they controlled permits, inspections, fines, you name it. The worst part. My land sat right in the middle of their little kingdom, but totally outside their jurisdiction. A free country inside a dictatorship. And Brenda wasn't the type to tolerate non-compliant neighbors. The first time I met her, I was elbow-deep in the engine of my grandfather's tractor. The diesel sputtered and coughed behind me, the morning air crisp enough to taste. Then I heard the click-click-click of heels on gravel, fast, sharp, and furious. I turned, wiping grease on an old rag. "Mr. Brennan," she said, voice sweet, like honey poured over razor wire. "I'm Brenda Kilpatrick, HOA president. We need to discuss your agricultural structure." She said structure like it was a slur. She stared at the barn as if its existence personally offended her ancestors. "Ma'am, I said that barn's been here longer than your development's been a doodle on a contractor's napkin." Her smile tightened. "It is visible from 17 homes, and it lowers property value. We expect our community to maintain certain standards." "This is private agricultural property," I said. "Your HOA has exactly 0 jurisdiction here." That's when the mask slipped. Her eyes turned cold. "There are creative solutions for problems that threaten community prosperity," she whispered. "I hope you don't force us to use them." I'd sentenced mafia lieutenants who were less bold than this woman. 1 week later, the county code officer came trembling up my driveway, holding 14 anonymous complaints: noise, dust, rodents, environmental hazards, you name it. Poor guy looked like he'd been told to choose between his job and his integrity. When he admitted Brenda had pressured him direct voicemail, not even subtle, I photographed every page right there. He flinched, like each camera click was gunfire. My old prosecutor instincts began to unfurl like a beast waking up from hibernation. This wasn't a neighborly dispute. This was coordinated harassment, and she was sloppy enough to leave fingerprints everywhere. That night at 8:47 p.m. on the dot, she called. "I understand you've been interfering with legitimate enforcement," she said. "Miss Kilpatrick," I replied, "I've documented your abuse of county resources for personal harassment." Her voice dropped cold. People who make themselves difficult neighbors often find their problems multiply, exponentially. I'd heard threats like that from men who later went to federal prison. She was outmatched, but she didn't know it yet. When the lawsuit arrived claiming my barn was structurally dangerous, lowering property values by $50,000, and yes, posing potential terrorist concealment risk, I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. This wasn't some attorney chasing easy money. This was an $800 an hour Des Moines firm hired to crush me. And that ironically was the moment doubt crept in. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the stack of papers, the accusations, the legal threats. For the first time since moving here, I wondered if maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe fighting the HOA, a machine built on bureaucracy and money, was a losing battle. Maybe this old land with its memories and ghosts wasn't worth the hell that was coming. But then I looked out the window at the barn, my grandfather's barn, the place where he taught me to drive a tractor, where he kept every letter my grandmother sent during the summers she spent nursing in Chicago. I saw him in my mind, calloused hands, quiet strength, the kind of man who never bowed to bullies. No, I wasn't giving up. I called Michael Chen, one of my former clerks, now a civil rights bulldog in Chicago. Michael, I said someone's using county government to steal my land. Oh, good, he said. I was worried retirement had made you boring. Within 72 hours, he filed a blistering federal countersuit. And then the FBI called. Agent Sarah Kowalski, sharp, calm, and carrying the tone of someone who knew things I didn't. Judge, the harassment you described matches a land fraud pattern across 6 counties. Elderly farmers, veterans, minority, homeowners, same tactics. Anonymous complaints, legal pressure, forced sales. So Brenda wasn't just a tyrant, she was part of a machine, and they'd picked the wrong retiree to shake down. Her tactics escalated fast. Power outages at 2:17 a.m. on 3 separate nights. Camera footage caught her Mercedes crawling past my property right before each one. Water pressure mysteriously dropped only at my address. Then the local paper published an anonymous letter calling me unstable and a potential threat. That last part would have been almost funny if it weren't so predictable. Neighbors began coming forward. Marcus Rodriguez, soft-spoken guy, young father, told me Brenda once warned his wife that it would be unfortunate if his immigration status drew attention. I've been a citizen for 20 years, he said. She doesn't know that. She's betting I'm too scared to fight. Fear. That was her real weapon. Then came the night everything changed. 3:17 a.m. A smell of smoke. An orange glow through my bedroom window. My grandfather's barn gone. Just gone. I ran outside barefoot, the gravel biting my feet. The heat hit me like a furnace. Ash drifted down like black snow. I felt something inside me harden into steel. Brenda hadn't just crossed a line. She'd set the line on fire. I called the FBI. I called Michael. And then I called an old colleague to confirm a legal suspicion that had started gnawing at me. Buried deep within the original HOA documents, Section 47C was a clause giving the HOA first right of refusal on any non-conforming property within 2 miles, at 60% of market value. Conveniently, that included my land. Even more convenient, Brenda owned $2.3 million in stock in the development company buying up surrounding farmland. She wasn't trying to fix community standards, she was trying to bulldoze a path to a $100 million expansion. By sunrise, the FBI had turned my dining room into an operations center. Flowchart surveillance requests, evidence bags, my quiet farmhouse looked like the set of a crime drama. Neighbors came forward with stories that made mine look mild. Elderly residents fined for hanging laundry. A veteran written up for parking his motorcycle in his own driveway. A single mom targeted for having a garden gnome. The worst, a mountain of fake citations used to pressure families into selling. Suddenly, the entire community realized the same thing. Brenda wasn't protecting property values. She was harvesting victims. Then came her final mistake. She showed up at my door with the county commissioner in tow, offering to help resolve this unpleasantness. A $400,000 cash offer for land worth triple that. When I declined, they warned of inspections, tax reviews, safety concerns, all said in that casual tone people use when they're telling you they own your fate. What they didn't know was that the FBI had wired my house. Every threat, every bribe, every smug tone was recorded. Within days, her retaliation turned frantic. Marcus's wife was fired. Mrs. Chin received a fraudulent tax reassessment. Social services showed up at a mother's home because of an anonymous report. A veteran was arrested sober. The more she panicked, the more evidence she handed us. Which leads us to the HOA meeting. I've seen packed courtrooms, but nothing like this. 437 residents crammed into a room built for maybe 200, reporters lining the walls, phones held high, the air buzzing with tension. Brenda walked in like a queen entering her throne room, Armani suit heels clicking like weapons. She called the meeting to order. "Before we begin," she announced, "I must address the harassment being directed at your community leadership." Actually, someone said, standing up. "He can speak now." "Agent Kowalski." The room erupted. Brenda's face drained of color. I walked to the podium carrying one thing, the charred hammer from my grandfather's barn. I laid it down, the burnt wooden handle thudding across the microphone. I didn't have to raise my voice. "My name is Federal Judge Thaddeus Brennan," I said. 3 months ago, this HOA president began a campaign to force me off my land. Tonight I'll show you why. I flipped open my laptop and projected everything. Bank transfers to shell companies, land purchases tied to her husband, doctored citations, recorded threats, the video of her Mercedes circling my house before the fire, the audio of her offering to make my legal problems disappear. Every screen in that community center glowed with the truth. Brenda tried to speak. "These are lies. He's delusional." And then I played her own voice. "We can resolve your lawsuit quietly, if you're willing to sell." Silence fell so heavy you could feel it pressing on your skin. Agent Kowalski stepped forward. "Brenda Kilpatrick, you are under arrest for conspiracy, wire fraud, mail fraud, obstruction of justice, civil rights violations, and harassment under color of law." The handcuffs clicked, cameras flashed, people gasped, whispered, cried. Commissioner Fitzpatrick tried to run, but agents blocked the doors. One by one, the corrupt dominoes fell. I looked at Brenda as they led her out. She glared at me with pure hatred, like I was ruining her life. "You once told me," I said into the mic, "that there are creative solutions for people who threaten your community." I paused. Turns out I have creative solutions too. And that was it. The end of her empire, the end of her terror, the end of a war she never should have started. Sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to show them what real power looks like.